And with me today, we're sitting here chatting with Sean Fewster, a man who, if you recall, folks, did a great article earlier this year on WWE, on the Performance Centre, and he's here to share that experience with us now. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks very much for having me.
Now, I guess we'll kick it off with, as we usually sort of do and like to, is start with your background in wrestling, like when you started watching it. So, were you a little kid, or when did that all sort of start happening?
The first match I remember watching is Hogan versus The Sheik. Now, I probably didn't see that live. I reckon I probably saw it on Wide World of Sports on replay or something like that. But that suckered me in straight away, and I was in from that moment. So I grew up watching all the Coliseum home video releases of WWE, renting them from the local video store, driving my parents mad getting those, and reading the APTA mags about NWA and things like that. So I got this weird dichotomy in my head that NWA was the really serious, hardcore stuff, and guys like Harley Race and Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes were the real hard-bitten tough guys, and the guys that I saw on TV were the bit more, flowery, cartoony guys. I reckon I was probably about 6 or 7 when I figured out that wrestling's scripted, and so it didn't stop me from enjoying it though. I had a really good friend by the name of Tim Hatcher who was into it as well, so we agreed, we're the only 2 guys we knew that were into wrestling, so we agreed right then and there we were going to talk about it as if it were real, to make our conversations easy. So without knowing it, we were kayfabing at the age of 7 and never turned back. I've followed pretty much everything mainstream, some indie stuff, some overseas stuff ever since.
Because when you're talking about, the Coliseum videos and, in Australia, especially in Adelaide, I don't know about folks in Sydney or Melbourne or what sort of availability they had to the stuff back then, but that was really all I had as well, like in the early 90s, and that's what I grew up on. And with the APTA mags, I used to get, I think I bought maybe 3 or 4 issues of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. So was that the mags that you were getting here, or did you have to, import them in? Because that was the only one besides WWF magazine that I remember at the time really here.
Yeah, I was reading PWI, I was reading WWE magazine. I grew up in Gawler, about 40 k's out of Adelaide, and it's a weird little town because for some bizarre reason we were getting the APTA mags monthly in the newsagent, the local newsagent. They were always there. The WWF magazine was there every month. My family used to vacation down at Victor Harbour, and their newsagent did the same thing. So it didn't matter where we went, I was always able to get my hands on the latest mags. Latest was they were 6 months behind. But there was still, for me, it was brand new. I distinctly remember reading about Rick Rude in NWA before he came to WWF. So when he turned up in WWF, it's like, oh my God, we're doomed. It's Rick Rude. He was such a hardcore guy. We were screwed. So I remember thinking, the Warrior and everybody, they're definitely going to lose to him because this is a real tough man coming through.
Yeah, Warrior Rude. That was an awesome. That's one that I really remember back when I was a kid, because WrestleMania 5 was one of those first tapes that I got a hold of.
Well, I grew up watching, by the sounds of things, I'm a fair bit older than you. I'm 35 this year, so I've been watching wrestling pretty much since Hogan won the belt. So I've just clocked over, 30-something years. So, I remember when you only got 4 tapes a year, the big 4, Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, and SummerSlam.
Can't forget Super Tape.
Oh, occasionally. They would turn up every now and again, but if you heard Lord Alfred Hayes saying, this is a Coliseum home video exclusive, you're like, yes, we're getting something good this time.
They were always fun, like those MSG matches with the dim lighting, and sometimes you had to put up with Alfred Hayes' commentary, which was a bit brutal, like give me Heenan and Gorilla instead. But those days were awesome, and you get a match and think wow, I'm never gonna see this on a pay-per-view. And of course here, that's all we had, so that was a massive thing. Dino Bravo and Hacksaw, wow. Hercules. That was a big deal.
Yeah, that's right. Guys like Hercules. And then, in the early days when I didn't understand how it worked properly, and like I said, guys like Rude would jump ship. I remember when the Road Warriors jumped ship and became Legion of Doom, I freaked out because, I'd heard in all the APTA mags about the Road Warrior pop and about the things they'd done to Dusty Rhodes with the spike and stuff like that. Here they were in WWE, and they came in as baby faces, and it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen in my life.
Yeah, what was your opinion on the change? Because they went from that really street hardcore to, they still sort of kept the gimmick, but it was the red pads and the red paint and the more colourful sort of thing. So with the difference of the more sporting based, more quote unquote real type of stuff in NWA, were you still trying to seek did you still prefer that stuff to the cartoonish, or were you nah, give me whatever I can get?
It was very much whatever I could get, but also I don't think I was mature enough yet to see the difference, because I was reading the APTA mags. I didn't see any NWA matches. So I didn't see the Road Warriors in the old days. I saw photos and I heard about it. So when they came across to WWF with that reputation, I think I just made the connective tissue in my head. It's like, oh yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. And I was probably thinking to myself, somebody's going to get that spike at some point. And the fact that it didn't happen, I think it was around the time that they brought Ellering back with the dummy that I started realising that this wasn't the Road Warriors that I was used to from the Apter mags. And even then, it wasn't a case of, oh, they were softer than they must have been in NWO. I think I was starting to understand the different audiences for the two products, and that helped.
So you probably picked up on that a bit younger than me, because I was, I still wanted to believe that it was, on the download, on the reel, until maybe I was about 15, and then some of that more attitude era stuff was happening. I was like, I don't know if this is, this isn't exactly fair dinkum, but you want to, it's about wanting to suspend that disbelief. And back then, even for kids, it was a lot harder. And I don't think it's got anything to do with the internet or availability of information like backstage and all that. I think it's just the presentation of it in general, really.
Undoubtedly. My daughter's 10 years old and she's now into wrestling. She got into NXT and she worships the ground that the NXT guys walk on. She saw her first WrestleMania this year. I've never seen a reaction to the Bray Wyatt-John Cena match like I saw out of my daughter. That was 30 minutes of angst on her part. She was in tears. She almost broke my hand gripping it. She was so terrified that John Cena was going to give in to the monster and become a heel. And it shows the power of those sort of matches, that if you can suspend that disbelief and lose yourself in it, no matter what age you are, but especially for kids, they do lose themselves in it, because the story, if well told, will ravel you. And she was a mess. She fell on my shoulder crying at the end in relief. He didn't turn heel. He didn't turn heel. She knows that he's a character. She knows he's a performer. She knows Bray Wyatt is Mike Rotunda's son, things like that. But she lost it all for that 30 minutes and was completely consumed. It was brilliant to see.
Now, I the same thing when the whole CM Punk thing happened, the Money in the Bank, and he ended up taking the belt. When that because I didn't think sure, it's Chicago and all this hype with this angle, but there's no way they're going to let him take the belt, and there's no way that they're going to let him go over on Cena in the main event. It ain't going to happen. And then when Vince and Johnny came out, I'm like, here we go. But when he got that 3, I was sitting on the couch and I legit jumped up and did the Punk knee slide across the ground, because I was so happy. That angle and that match, it got me, and it is still possible.
Yeah, it brought us back. It brought back kayfabe in a way that we just weren't going to let go of. And the Daniel Bryan angle the past year has been the same. For all that people want to talk about, oh, they booked him badly or they booked him well, it suckered all of us in. Every single one of us was sitting there all that time thinking, just let the poor bastard win, will you? It suckered us into kayfabe in a completely new way.
See, I was thinking when he did eventually, the match was sort of booked for main, and you thought, okay, the way this is going to play out, he's going to win the main event. I was sitting there afterwards thinking, have we all been fooled for the last 8 months now? Of course, there's that thing where if Punk didn't leave, if this didn't happen, if that didn't happen, if the reaction wasn't so strong against Batista, it wouldn't have happened. But there's part of me that thinks they've played us all big time. There's a bit of that, but I don't know. What about you on that one?
I firmly believe they played us all. I think that had that angle not happened at Mania because of Punk, because of Batista, everything else, it would have happened down the track. My bet was always that now that Vince has turned WrestleMania into the showcase of the Immortals in terms of the part-time Immortals and the big names that come back, I think they were working on a year-long program so that Daniel got screwed at SummerSlam and won the day at SummerSlam. Took us on a year-long journey the way Mania used to take us on a year-long journey. That's my thinking on it, but who knows, really? We'll never know.
So we talked a bit about how you got into the wrestling and developed the passion for it and whatnot. Let's talk about being a journalist and journalism, and of course, which has led you here is that article that you did on WWE. So when did writing and journalism and all that sort of become a thing for you? And then you thought, all right, well, I can actually make a go of this and sort of get my name out there.
Yeah, well, I've wanted to be a journalist since I was about 10 years old. I've always loved writing, and someone said to me at the age of 10, nobody's going to pay you to write comic books, which is what I really wanted to do. So I thought, all right, and journalism sounded good, so I poured all my efforts into that. I've been very, very fortunate. I work at The Advertiser, and I'm their chief court reporter. So 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, I'm covering murders, rapes, serial killings, all sorts of horrid stuff. But I have the best bosses in the world and the best backup team in the world. They say to me, oh, Sean, the wrestling's coming to town. Do you want to interview somebody? Do you want to set it up? Sean, this wrestling DVD came in. Do you want to review it? and they take such good care of me. And it meant that a couple of years back, WWE was coming to Adelaide, and our entertainment reporter rings me and says, Sean, some guy called Kofi Kingston's going to be available for media interviews. Do you want to do it? I said, absolutely. So I took the job and interviewed Kofi down the phone one morning at, ungodly o'clock in the morning. And it was a fantastic interview, had a great chat, wrote it up for the paper, it ran really well, bought tickets to go see the show in Adelaide that year. And I had the day off. My boss rings me at 8 o'clock in the morning and says, Sean, you still going to the wrestling tonight? Yeah. All right. I've decided I want an interview for the paper tomorrow. Can you make one happen? So with 7.5 hours, I had to contact WWE, beg an interview, organise a photographer, get everything done. 3 hours into it, they ring me back and say, listen, the only guy we've got available is Rey Mysterio. Would that be all right?
Would that be all right?
Yeah, that'll be fine. That'll be fine. I've only been following him since him and Eddie at Halloween Havoc that year. Yeah, that'll be fine. No problems. So my wife and I ended up sitting backstage at WWE for about an hour waiting for Rey. While we're waiting for Rey to come in, Kofi comes in to introduce himself to me because he read the article and enjoyed it. Santino comes in. Josh Matthews comes in. Jason... what's his name? The ring announcer. Justin Roberts. Names flew out of my head. Justin Roberts comes in. The Miz comes in and has a chat. And all these people are flying in and out of the green room just, oh, hey, you're a journalist. How are you? Let's talk. Then Rey comes in, no mask, and says, do you mind if I leave the mask off? They told me you're a fan. Yeah, that'll be fine. Not a problem. Interviewed Rey, and great interview. Had to call it down the phone to the printing press, which is waiting, typing it directly into the newspaper. Yeah. And then the WWE PR crew say to me, oh, listen, there's no time to get you back to your seat. Come this way. Lead us out through Gorilla, past the pyro. We had to duck as the pyro went off, and then security led us back to our front row seats. Just amazing. So, lifelong love of wrestling and lifelong love of journalism collided that night, and just an incredible experience that I thought was going to be once in a lifetime, and I'm fortunate that it wasn't.
And so from then on, I mean, like earlier this, or was it last year that you went to the performance?
It was earlier this year. There's a sort of a stop point in the middle of that. WWE contacted me again and asked me to do another pre-write for the latest Adelaide tour, which was last year. So I interviewed The Miz down the phone. And this was just after, or around the time of the pipe bomb. Sorry, no, it was after the pipe bomb. We were talking about Punk's long title reign at this point. And he just made those comments about The Miz on his DVD, saying about how The Miz didn't deserve the spot at WrestleMania. So I thought, I'm going to angle my interview around that. The bosses read it, liked it, and gave me a full page in the paper. Now, this is the first time, I think, that wrestling has ever had that much coverage in the Adelaide Advertiser, especially.
It would have been a while.
A long time. So they ran it as a full page. WWE was so happy that they said, come backstage again when we come to Adelaide. And then they gave me Daniel Bryan to interview, which was brilliant. This was just before he really took off inside WWE. And so I interviewed Daniel Bryan that night and then put it straight up on the internet in the paper the next day, watched the show, enjoyed ourselves, and all was really good. Then October last year, I get an email from WWE's Australian PR team saying, would you be free in January to fly to Orlando and spend a week backstage at NXT?
And I guess one of the lucky things for you would have been in that case that, I mean, you hear that a lot of, like in WWE, they don't like the wrestling media to be quote-unquote like fanboys. They like them to be more serious and more journalistic. But I think in this case, they might have seen it as, well, this guy respects what we do. He knows what it's all about, so he's not going to take the piss. He's not going to angle it in a controversial manner. Like, he's going to present the story and put over what they want. That might have been actually a blessing instead of a hindrance in this case, I think, for you.
I think so, and I think also that I made my name as a crime and court reporter. I was a known quantity for serious journalism. I've written a book, I've done documentaries, interviews, things like that. So they knew that I was a full card-carrying journalist who also liked wrestling, rather than being, like you said, fan press. And they were very impressed, and obviously impressed enough to offer me this trip, which was just... It blew my mind to think that they were offering me, we'll fly you to Orlando, put you up in a hotel for a week and fly you back on our dime, and you can have unprecedented access to NXT and the Performance Center. Oh, and by the way, we'll give you 10 minutes with Triple H as well.
Yeah, we'll get to that as well. Don't worry, we'll get the juicy goss on that wasn't printed in the paper. So I guess we should, now that we know how it was set up and how that all how it all came about, let's talk about the trip. We could be here a while. We'll see how we go, but it might be a two-parter, folks. We'll see how we go. So let's, I guess, kick it off from you arrive. I'm guessing, do you arrive in LA and then fly over to the East Coast? Or?
Yeah, I flew out the Tuesday after the Royal Rumble. And of all the Royal Rumbles to fly out after, it was that one. So I'm leaving Australia with Bautista echoing in my head, and I'm in the air when Punk resigns. I don't find out Punk's resigned till I get into LAX and switch on my phone. And I've got text messages from everybody that knows I'm on this trip saying CM Punk just walked out. And I suddenly realised that I'm walking into WWE at the crisis moment. I'm about to meet the upper echelon at the performance center at the promised land right when this has happened. I'm sitting there in Los Angeles airport thinking, what am I about to walk into? So I'm in LA and...
But at that point, you must have been thinking, like, this could actually go pear-shaped. Like, if people aren't in the right frame of mind and don't want to deal with some strange guy coming into their territory, they could have turfed you off in a second if they wanted to. Like, because only because I've heard how, like you said, how volatile things were with Stephanie and Triple H and Punk going. It was all like where are we going to go from here, sort of thing. So yeah.
The other problem I had was when I stopped in LA, I couldn't get anyone from WWE on the phone. So I rang back to Australia and just said, everything's still cool. They said, yeah, absolutely. Why wouldn't it be? And I said, great, no problem. That'll do. That's fine. Still got my plane tickets. I'm off. So got myself from LA to Orlando, which is a 6-hour flight, and grabbed a cab and drove to where I was told the hotel was, and was very pleased to meet WWE's PR people right at the front doors. And that was the moment I relaxed. It's like, this is going to be okay. No matter what happens from here, we're going to be all right. And I can't thank John and Helen from WWE enough. They were fantastic people to deal with. I've dealt with a lot of media people over my life. Gatekeepers, PR people, offsiders to prime ministers and premiers and people like that. They could all take a lesson from the way WWE handles the media. It was, for all the horror stories you may hear at times, nothing but professionalism. It was so very good.
Was your first point of call like the performance center? Like that was basically like, okay, this is where you're going to do the majority of your reporting on the company?
Yeah, I got in on a Wednesday night, some ungodly late hour, and slept, and then the next morning it was right, 9 o'clock, up, be ready, be on the bus, we're going to the performance center. And that was amazing. So you've got myself, there was a newspaper journalist from Germany, there was a 2-man crew from MTV in the UK, 3-person crew from Mexico, a 3-person crew from India, all on the one bus, headed to the performance center. And the performance center's at Full Sail, as everybody knows, Full Sail University. They tell you that 1,000 times. What they don't tell you is Full Sail University used to be a strip mall. Right. So you look like you're driving into a shopping center. There's a McDonald's on one side, there's a Burger King on the other side, and there's all these what look like shops arranged in a U-shape around a giant car park. But it's a former strip mall converted into a university. They've connected all the buildings up, refurbished them how they like. And to look at from the road, you don't know you're driving into a university. Then you get in there and it's amazing. They've got like a Dolby stage. They've got a cinema screening area. They've got video game generating rooms where you can build your video games from the ground up. They've got a piano that can be played by the internet from another location. It's like the most high-tech place ever. So when you watch NXT, you see things like the Vaudevillains' new entrance with the sepia tones and the crackles and everything. That's all done by the students. All of NXT stuff is done by the students, and they've got more tech there than I think Channel 9 does here. It's unbelievable.
Cameramen as well, like they use them for their, like, as far as the full production crew at NXT, they use those students as like a work experience sort of thing for those students.
Well, it's part of their course. So, if you're doing camera work at Full Sail, once a month you're behind the camera for 4 shows of NXT. And Full Sail students are the ushers that take the tickets, that run the merchandise stand, they run the concession stand, they do all the video work, they do all the gophering running back and forth. They're the rosebuds, that sort of thing. Anything that needs to be there, you chuck a Full Sail student in. It's brilliant because these kids are getting just incredible opportunities to try this out on a globally produced product. And we've all seen how good NXT looks. I think the consensus is there are a lot of nights it's better than Raw. And they're a big part of that. And the relationship between the two organisations is working really, really well. And the Full Sail Live facility is phenomenal. You know, it's about twice the size of something like where RCW plays, things like that, about twice that size. And you look at it on screen, it looks $1 million every time, you know, and it really is well done, considering they can put that up in the afternoon, tape 4 shows, and then knock it down that night. Yeah, right. It's never there permanently because the university needs that space for the rest of the month.
See, I was under the assumption that that particular soundstage or that particular room was sort of set up 24/7 for, you know, even for photography purposes or for anything like that they might need. But it's
all that happens at the Performance Centre, which is about a 5-10 minute drive away. So you've got Full Sail in one place and you've got the Performance Centre in another place. Gotcha. And that's the difference, you know. So Full Sail's built up and knocked down over a 24-hour period once a month. The Performance Centre never shuts.
That's going to be another good cost-cutting measure for WWE as well, to have those students doing that as basically work experience as well. I mean, like, that's with the cost with the network and everything that's happening at the moment. I'm sure they're going to branch out into more markets around the world. You know, countries that we've never even heard of are probably going to start getting WWE in the network soon. So, I mean, like, that's got to be a real help for them at the moment, because we've seen all those names get axed in the last couple of weeks, like about a dozen people all up, I think, now.
Which is sad, and at the same time, this is what allows them to make the company profitable. I work for a global mega corporation as well. I know that these things need to be done no matter how much we like them, or don't like them in this case. The good thing about the Full Sail kids is, can you imagine walking into a TV production company with NXT on your resume? You know, oh, I've been at Full Sail for the past 3 years, or what have you done? Oh, I've exec produced WWE NXT for 3 years. Instant job.
And you're not just dealing with audio or video, and you're not just dealing with, you know, even you're dealing with, like people say, and, you know, when I'm sure like Triple H and people like that, when they're throwing the spiel out there, it's unlike any other form of entertainment. But that's true, really.
It is, and that's why we love it. I mean, let's face it, you know, it's sports mixed with comic books, mixed with movies, mixed with stuntmen. My wife, who's grown into loving wrestling through knowing me, calls it her sweaty man soap opera. And that is a pretty good description. You know, that's why we love it. That's what it's all about.
Got to throw a plug out there for her cosplay venture as well. Get it out there, Sean, because I know that she's big in the community in Adelaide at least, and yeah, she's got a few fans, so we want to get some more for her. So what's the go there?
Yeah, facebook.com/JUSZ cosplay.
Just Cos.
Just Z cosplay. Yeah, that's my wife. She does wrestling cosplays as well as comic book characters and things like that, and she's doing a brilliant job, really making a name for herself.
That's like a big thing as well at the moment. It's the crossover's there because, you know, we all love superheroes and the you know, the cosplay of the comic book characters and movie characters and whatnot. Like, it's all in that nerd culture at the moment, which is really like massive.
And I reckon Big Grim could play Thor if they ever need to replace Chris Hemsworth. You know, he's got the build for it and he looks good with the hammer. So
it did happen at Supernova.
That's my wife he's throttling in that photograph, and me.
Hey, I messed up in that because I was the referee for Thor versus Dean Brady, and because I am not a comic book aficionado, you know, all the Transformers and all that sort of, all the movies that are coming out at the moment, I'm not really big into it myself. And of course, you know, Thor's got his hammer and Thor puts the hammer down. Of course, I'm like, yes, all right, I trust you can use the hammer, that's fine, babyface, so I've got to trust him, right? So he puts the hammer down, and then the hammer ended up, I don't know, it was like in the middle of the ring or something. And so I've gone to, like, I've just thought, oh, gee, I better get out of the way because someone's going to trip. So I've just picked up the hammer and put it in the corner. And then I've absolutely copped it. And I've watched the video back later. Todd Eastman's on the outside. Todd Eastman's on the outside managing Dean. And I've watched the video back, and as I grab the hammer, he just puts his head in his hands and just goes, oh my God, Armour, what have you done? Because I've messed up the entire spot. Me not knowing that only Thor can hold the hammer, I was oblivious to it. That was my my little botch there at Supernova.
And you were working heel at the time, so there's no in RCW, so there's no way you would have been worthy enough to pick up the hammer. No way.
That's right. So we sort of started off there with, you know, I guess, you see the Performance Centre and you're like, wow, this is what it all encompasses. Like,
yeah, we sort of jumped because we got a bit lost there, and I went to Full Sail first, but the bus took us to the Performance Centre first, and the Performance Centre flips me out because have you ever been to like an industrial park, you know, where they have like factories and things like that?
Yeah.
We drove into this industrial park, and there's a bunch of cars parked around, and unless you're prepared to sort of look up 20 feet in the air, you wouldn't know the Performance Centre's there. Right. because we've all seen the sign on TV, we've seen the WWE Performance Center logo. It's right at the top of a very nondescript building in a very nondescript industrial park in the middle of Orlando. It's like, crap, okay, so this is the Performance Center. You open the door and you walk in, and that's when it hits you. The walls of the lobby are painted Attitude Era red. There's a display case on one side that's got the spare WWE title, DX's helmets from the night they invaded Nitro, Harley Race's boots, Trish Stratus's hat, John Cena's wristbands, all sorts of stuff. One of Mae Young's old lobby cards from one of her appearances back in the 40s is there.
Like ring-worn gear, like...
All that sort of stuff's there in this display case off to the right-hand side. The reception desks to the right in front of you. There's a conference room to the left. Like I said, walls are Attitude Era red. Then you look up, and there's a piece of the original Hell in a Cell from Michael's Taker at Bad Blood, the night Kane ripped the doors down, is the ceiling. Crazy. That cage has been chopped up and forms part of the ceiling of every conference room in the Performance Center.
Is that right? I thought it would have been just like in sort of like the training areas or something like that, but actually in those where all the suits are sort of having meetings and whatnot.
Absolutely, and every room has, like I say, a piece of the Hell in a Cell and at least one bit of memorabilia in it, if not more. And most conference rooms have a screen that's playing, in those days DVDs, now I'm sure it's the network, 24/7, different WWE stuff. So we stand in there and we're just soaking it up. Now, James DeBride from MTV UK, he was a fan. I'm a fan. We were the two big fans there. Everyone else was just like, oh, this is cool. We're going, oh my God, it's just completely losing our shit. Drooling over this stuff, you know. And I mean, there's the spare WWE belt. That thing is amazing.
So that's because they have the traveling belts, and then they have the ones that are in a case that are kept nice and shiny and clean for TV. That's right, yeah?
That's right. There's two traveling belts, from what I understand, and you'll find out why later. There's two traveling belts, and then there's the couple of pristine belts. One of them's kept at NXT full-time in the Performance Center, in the locked case, just in case they need it, because it's easy to get it from there to wherever they need it to go.
Just in case, like the current champ comes down to NXT, like bang, it's there.
Exactly. The less they have to lug this thing around, the better, because that thing, when they talk about gold, rubies, diamonds, there's no kayfabe in that. That belt is legit. It is heavy as hell, and I know because I got to hold it. It is beautiful as anything, and despite what you may think of it the night The Rock unveiled it, it's a really nice title belt. It really, really is.
I think it is too. It's really grown on me, that design, from the spinner design that there was. This one, at first, I thought, it looks a bit plain, but maybe that's what the belt needed, was just a nice, simplistic, elegant look. And I think it's got that. But what do you think of the new network logo?
I don't mind that either. I think that's nice and clean as well. It's nice and sharp. It brings me back to the old days. It's a nice sort of mix of the Attitude Era logo and the original WWF logo to me. But back to the design of the belt, you were saying about it being plain. One thing that I always think about with that design is something Triple H has said in a lot of interviews. The belt doesn't make the guy makes the belt. If the belt is shinier than the guy that's holding it, you've got a problem. So a nice, plain, iconic belt should be spectacular on the shoulder of the right person. Now, how good did it look on Daniel Bryan the night of WrestleMania? That belt looked phenomenal. And that's why, because he was making the belt, not the other way around. Yeah, so that's my spin on it. That's why I don't mind that design. As much as I love the classic World Heavyweight Championship belt, and I think that is the epitome of what a wrestling belt should look like, and I'm glad that it's still around. I'm very glad it's on one guy, both of them on one guy, because we needed that for a long time. But I'm really a fan of both designs for different reasons. I mean, even the big gold belt, it's still fairly plain. It doesn't, jump out at you, but you put that on the waist of, well, you can't put it on Dusty's waist, but you put it on a Harley Race or somebody like that, and it looks amazing. If you're extenders.
That's it. Like, there's nothing better than seeing, watching old NWA footage of Flair, and he comes out and he opens up the robe, and there's that massive gold belt there. Like, it just looks amazing, really.
It's him making the shine. The reason it shines is because it's on him, not because the belt itself is some spectacular gimmick. Russo's right when he says the belt is just a prop. because the guy has to make it sparkle. Otherwise, it's, we all talk about, why does the IC belt have no luster anymore? Why does the US belt have no luster anymore? Because the US belt is one of the nicest designed belts ever made. It's a gorgeous piece of hardware. But when was the last time it mattered? It's got to matter through the guy and the storyline.
Yeah, that was the thing with Ambrose. He could have been a really good United States champ, but I don't think he really was. I mean, he held the belt for a long time, but it's not the sort of thing where we're going to look back in 10 years and go, remember Dean Ambrose's US title reign? Whereas we're still looking back 20 years ago, going, remember, Tully Blanchard's reign. You still think of that,
Exactly. I mean, the last one that I think we really think of, and it's only become important in hindsight, is MVP, because it was so long. And because, for me, when he couldn't defend the belt because of his heart condition, they did that great angle with Matt Hardy with the basketball and the pizza eating and everything like that. The belt still mattered.
And just quietly, I want someone to do that angle in RC Dub. I was when Brad Smythe and Luke Santa Maria had their thing going a couple of years back, I was like, Brad, your uncle is Phil Smythe. Like, how Luke's gimmick is that he's an Italian rapping basketball player. How perfect is this? Just rip off the Hardy MVP thing and it'll go down like a storm. If anyone out there wants to take that, just give me a bit of credit and all good. But yeah, I love that stuff. And yeah, it was one of the last times where you really remember that belt meaning something.
Absolutely. And, they're doing a great job now with the NXT belt meaning something as well, with the sort of people, not only that are challenging Adrian for the belt, but also the old-timers, so to speak, that come down and want to have a match with him. RVD the other night, it wasn't the greatest match in the history of the universe, but it meant something that RVD wanted to challenge him. It's the old Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair thing of, I need to know how good I am still. And it means something.
So what else, I guess that was sort of the first day that you were there, was you sort of getting shown around, getting acquainted with the players. When did sort of things pop up that, like, were you aware first off that, okay, I'm going to get the chance to sit down with Triple H and I'm going to be interviewing, Adrian Neville and whatnot? I mean, was that sort of, did you know that beforehand, or once you got there, all these little opportunities came up?
Yeah, I knew very little going in. I'd asked specifically to interview Emma, our own Tennille Dashwood, because that was the good Australian angle, and they'd said, yep, we'll set that up. And we'd been told we were going to have our 10 minutes with Triple H each, and then we were told we'll tour the Performance Centre. That's it. So we're standing there in that lobby that I described earlier, go through one set of doors, turn left, and then you're in the ring room. This is the main area that you've seen on everything from, every piece of footage. The 7 rings. You've got one in the middle, the surrounding rings, and then right next to the centre ring, there's Paige, Adrian Neville, William Regal, Bill DeMott, Sami Zayn, Emma, a couple of other people. It's just like, holy crap. And they're like, we've set up a radio row. So everybody pick a superstar and then rotate one to the right and work your way around. And that was great. Everybody instantly went for people. I found myself sort of standing there a minute, stunned, just looking around. Next thing I know, there's somebody standing next to me. It's Adrian Neville. He said, hey, how you doing? Oh, good. We sort of looked. I guess I should interview you. Yeah, I guess I should. And so I started off with Adrian, who was very cool to talk to. This is before he won the title. And we were talking earlier about fan versus journalist professionalism. I'd made a promise to myself before I went in. I was going to put my fan brain to the back and my professional brain to the front and really try hard to be that professional journalist who was also a fan. So I turned up in a 3-piece suit for the day. Everyone else turned up in trackies and jeans and sneakers. I dressed the clobber.
Just quietly, the fact that you rocked up in a suit, they would have loved that, I'm sure. Because all the superstars, like, that's the way they like them to travel, where they're going through airports or backstage or whatnot. We don't want you in jeans and a T-shirt. We want to see you, like, to the nines sort of thing. And
that was exactly my thinking. I knew that too, and I thought, right, this is the way to be. Presented full on, they'll take me more seriously. And, of course, all the superstars were dressed in the grey Performance Centre shirts and the black trousers, and then the divas were all dressed in colourful gear, just nice casual wear colourful gear. So Adrian and I chatted, and that was great, and I had to mention straight away that I've been following since he was Pac. And that was like a light bulb switched on. Suddenly he opened up and we talked a lot more. We were talking about Japan, we were talking about the Indies, we were talking about the UK, and specifically how you take everything from there, put it through the WWE machine and come out the other side as a better product. And this was the theme of the day, because a lot's made in the fan press about, why don't you just let a Daniel Bryan wrestle straight away? Why don't you just let an Adrian Neville wrestle straight away? They've wrestled all around the world. What I learned in the Performance Center that day and at NXT that night, most importantly, is it doesn't matter what you can do around the world. If you can't put together a 2.5-minute WWE-style match, you can't be in WWE. You can be the greatest chef in the world that can cook any souffle, but if you can't cook the specialty of the restaurant at which you work, you've got no business being there. And this is the same thing. So, and the example that I point to now is Sami Zayn. When Sami first started wrestling at NXT, he was fairly generic, pardon the pun. But then the last couple of weeks, and I'm sure you've noticed it, suddenly the Blue Thunder Bombs come back. Suddenly the Turnbuckle Power Bombs come back. Some of the things that we know from El Generico are starting to seep in, because he's got the WWE style down pat, and now he can make it his own.
Now they can sort of trust him to put his own flair on what they want.
Exactly. And the same with Daniel too. You look at how Daniel wrestles now, is so close to Bryan Danielson as opposed to what he was 2 years ago. You've got to go through and show that, like any job, that you can be part of the machine before you can shine. And the Performance Center does a great job of teaching them all these things. So I moved from Adrian to Sami. And this was the moment that Fan Brain won, because I looked at Sami and he said, "Hey, how you doing?" And I said, "Good." I said, "I'm here to piss in your boots and eat your children." From that great Colt Cabana promo all those years ago. He lost it laughing and said to me, "Of course, I've never actually officially admitted that I was El Generico. So, I might not be El Generico." I said, "That's true. That's true. Kayfabe must be observed." He said, "Well, if it's true that I was El Generico, and I'm not saying it was, then I'm clearly a sick bastard for insisting on kayfabe for an independent wrestling scene character." I said, no, artistic integrity, man. It's all about artistic integrity. And
hey, that's it. When you even at RC, you go out there at local show, you go out there to sign autographs. I tell you what, something bad's happened in the main event. Do you think I'm going to come out there and be all happy? No, exactly. No. And that's the thing. You got to suspend that disbelief, even if it's for 10 minutes. You got to do it.
I love it, and I said to him, that's what makes it passionate, and that's what makes it important. And Sami is an artist. Everything you've ever read about him saying, this is my art, this is my craft, I want to inspire people. That's who he is, 100%. And already a fan, he won me over even further then. Moved on to Emma next, and that was fantastic. Emma and I actually have a bizarre connection. When Tenille was wrestling in Canada, she was dating a guy by the name of Scotty Mack, who's the on-off champion of Elite Championship Canadian Wrestling. Scotty used to work at a pub in Canada that was owned by my brother-in-law. Wow. My wife worked at that pub. Emma, Tenille, met my wife. I met Scott. At no stage were Tenille and I in Canada at the same time. So here we are in Orlando for WWE years later, and I introduced myself, and her first words were, "Oh my God, you're Justine's Australian husband."
It was fate.
It was fate. How small is the world? How small is the world? I had to fly that far away to meet this girl who used to date a friend of mine.
We always say Adelaide's small, but Earth is small. There you go.
So that was cool, and we had a fantastic chat. I won't go into that too much because that's all in the interview. You guys can see that on the story.
We'll pop a link up on our Facebook to that, so people, if they haven't read it yet, they can get a full gander because it's still online. So yeah.
So talk to her and talk to William Regal, which was absolutely phenomenal. That man is a gent. That man is a saint. I had the most fun talking to him. Just so good. We're chatting back and forth, and I complimented him on one of my favourite matches, which is him and CM Punk for the IC belt a couple of years back. And I said, what I liked most about that match was how nice and stiff it was. And he grinned and he said to me, "That's the beauty of what I do, because it wasn't stiff at all." He said, "I made it look stiff, and that's why you keep paying your money to come back." And I thought, you are a god amongst men. You are so cool. So we're moving around and we're looking at different things. And one of the things I love most about the ring room of the Performance Center is the special ring they designed that is 4 feet of foam core padding. So you can practice all your high-flying moves. Your flips, your red arrows, your 450s, everything like that without killing yourself.
But at the same time, it doesn't. So it does, instead of like, as we would hear, if people were going to get in the ring and try those high spots, they'd bust out the massive blue crash mat, drag it into the ring under the bottom rope and all that sort of jazz. But they've just got a ring with just a thicker padding.
Yeah, well, it's solid foam core all the way down to the bottom. Okay. So it's not just thicker padding; it's nothing but crash mat.
No wood, nothing.
No wood, no nothing. So you can hit this thing and you don't sink, but you don't die either. And Bill DeMott's training some people on this thing while we're watching, and there's this young guy who one day will probably be a superstar, and hate that I'm telling this story, but he's up on the ring, he says, I want to show the journalists what I can do. And he's up on the top turnbuckle, and Bill goes, all right, put your arms out in front of you and give me 12 squats. What? Says the guy. Why? And Bill says, if you can do your move after 12 squats, you know how to do your move. Are you going to bust it out at the start of the match? Oh, no, it's my finisher. Well, you'll be tired, you'll be disoriented, you'll be dizzy. Yeah. So come on, 12 squats. If you can do 12 squats, I'll let you show Sean your move. He goes, all right, 1, 2, 3, bang! Falls on his face. Bill's like, get out the ring. Oh, but he's like, no, that's it for today. Get out the ring. Can't do it again until tomorrow.
Hang on, did he want the squats done on the top
turnbuckle? On the top turnbuckle with both hands out in front of him. And Bill's like, nah, out of the ring, you can't do it today. Sorry.
So that's one thing I wanted to ask you as well, like being around Bill DeMott. I mean, we've all watched Tough Enough and seen how, people think Bill DeMott like Hugh Morris. Why the heck is he training people at NXT? He's no Ric Flair, he's no Steven Regal. He hasn't had this mind blowing career where people go like, think ring generals and go, oh yeah, Hugh Morris. Like, it doesn't happen. So there's obviously something there. There's obviously a reason why Vince, Triple H, all these people have said, right, we want you to be in charge of the future and get them to that next level in training. Do you think it is that the fact that he is such a hard ass is the reason why he's got that gig? Because I know that's a question that a lot of people have regarding the NXT training.
He's a hard ass who, after 10 minutes of listening to him, you'd follow him into hell. He is a ring general in the original sense of the word general. He is a leader of men. He is a kick your ass, wipe your nose, let's get going again type. He's not quite drill sergeant. He's charismatic and he makes you want to get better. Hell, I wanted to get in the ring listening to him talking, you know? It's like the way that he's pumping these kids up. It's like, yeah, I can do that too. Oh, I can't. I'm, 6'5" and built of twigs, but I want to get in there and try that. He is such a great leader of men. And he is a general. He's General Rection. Don't forget that. Don't ever forget that he's Hugh G. Rection. I reminded him that he was Hugh G. Rection, and he told me off for reminding him.
I don't blame him either. If I had that gimmick, I'd be wanting to forget it as fast as possible too, I reckon.
Well, I got to admit, I saluted him, and then said to him, Hugh G. Rection, he said, the story about that, he said, is that the night that they told me that was going to be my gimmick was on pay-per-view, he said, and I thought, oh, God. So I rang my mother and told her, Mum, tonight you're going to hear something on TV you're not going to like, but it's all right. It's only a one-night thing. He said, so I did the promo and I came to TV the next night and they had me up on the run sheet as Hugh G. Rection. He said, the bastards ribbed me all over again.
Hugh G. Rection, and you can just see him, the way he delivers, like, tonight I've got a new name, rah rah, and then the way he says it as well, he's like, in between the Hugh and the G and the Rection, he's thinking, what am I doing? Like, it's just, the tone is, oh my God.
And what was interesting about talking to him about that was he said to me, that is the best lesson he ever learned in wrestling. Take it out and sell it. Doesn't matter what gimmick you're given, sell it. And he said, that's what I take to these kids. He said, when I have a kid come back to me and say, oh, they've given me this terrible gimmick, I'm like, yeah, are you Hugh G. Rection? No. Well, make it work. Come on, you can make this work. Think about it. If I can make Hugh G. Rection work, you can make anything work. And I think that might be part of his ability as well. I mean, the laughing man, Hugh Morris, for a guy of his size, his skill, moonsaulting like that, that's not exactly the greatest gimmick in the world. He made it work. We've never forgotten him. Hugh G. Rection. We're still talking about it, He made it work every time, and it doesn't matter what you give him. He will either make it work or find a way for someone else to make it work. I mean, he got the rest of the Misfits in action over. True. That's why he's there. That's why he's so damn good. You've got Regal for the I'll show you how to make it look like you're breaking bones. And then you've got Bill for I'll make anything work. The toolbox. He's the handyman. Anything can work when he touches it.
Were you staying there at all? Is it like overnight? Do they have facilities there where talent can sort of stay if they have to, or is it all like sort of it's work only? Like
no, it's work only. But when you work,
so it's not like Japan, for instance.
No. The Performance Center. When you are at the Performance Center, you've got a swipe card, so you've got 24/7 access. You can come in at any time and work. but you live somewhere else. You've got your own. I think that there's some accommodation provided until you find your own way and find your own place. Because of course you're paid to be at the performance centre. You're actually earning a living while you're there. You're also studying. There are college courses. There are accreditations. There are finance courses. How to manage your money. The whole point of this is you're going to come out of this performance centre one of two things: a WWE superstar or a trained professional wrestler that's not going to drop dead on booze and drugs in 10 minutes' time. You know, they want to make sure that Triple H said it to me when we talked. He said, everyone that comes out of here is going to be bulletproof. And that's the major goal. Whether you make it or whether you don't, you're going to be bulletproof. You can't be broken when you come out of the performance centre. They've moulded you into something that will resist the pressures and temptations of the world. You'll manage your money. That's why I think we're seeing so many of the recent releases get picked up on the indie scene straight away, because they know what they're doing. They find themselves a manager. They manage their money. They make their bookings. They keep going. And that's why most of these releases are coming out saying, my time with WWE was wonderful, because it was. These kids are coming out with college degrees. You know, Xavier Woods, they talk all the time on TV about how he's doing his latest doctorate. He's doing that through the Performance Centre. He's spending time studying in between his workouts and in between his ring time, because they're giving them the time to do those things.
And with people in their off time there, like, do you notice, because I mean, I know, like, you know, when people at a wrestling gym, say down here, you know, I mean, I know we're talking, you know, completely different kettle of fish, but still the same, I guess the same breed, you know what I mean? Like the same sort of people trying to achieve the same kind of thing in the same field. I mean, you know, the last thing sometimes you'll hear people talking about in between their sets is, you know, wrestling. They'll be talking about the latest movie. They'll be talking about, oh, I went out with this chick. They'll be talking about whatever. When people are there, is it like the game face is on sort of the whole time, or do you sort of catch a bit of people taking a breather and being more themselves?
It's less the game face and more the passion face. Okay. You're here to work, and all you want to do is be on WWE programming. All you want to do. There's an important distinction that needs to be struck here. If you're at the Performance Centre, you're not necessarily on NXT. If you're at the Performance Centre, your number one goal in life is to get on NXT. If you're at NXT, your number one goal is to get onto Raw and SmackDown. So everybody that's there is working their guts out, and they're talking wrestling, they're thinking wrestling, they're trying wrestling. We saw, the first time in my life I ever saw Mojo Rawley, he was working the ropes, you know, doing the Brock Lesnar style whipping the ropes thing for 40 minutes. That man does not just get hype. He does stay hype. That gimmick is all him. He did the ropes for 40 minutes because that's what he felt like doing that day. That's what he needed to do that day. So these people are narrow-focused, and not in a game-face sense, because I saw Tenille and Sami Zayn running around having laughs, poking fun at people. I saw Adrian Neville doing back bends and flipping people the finger just because. Everyone's having fun, but they're having fun with one goal in mind. And it's pure passion, that place. Like, you walk in there and you can't help but get inspired, because you walk around a corner and the door above the door, is the ring bell from WrestleMania 1 mounted on the wall. You know, there's Arnold Scallan's towel that he threw in for Bob Backlund. You know, you walk around another corner, there's The Undertaker's hat. You can't go anywhere in that building without going, this is what I'm here for, this is what I want to be, this is what I want to do.
So there's constant inspirational...
Positive reinforcement. Yeah, and the whole place is positive and inspiring. You go up to the talent retreat. On the upstairs floor is this talent retreat, and none of the trainers are allowed into the talent retreat. So, you know, Triple H doesn't go in there, Bill DeMott doesn't go in there. This is where the trainees can log into a computer, watch back all of their performances, and read critiques from the trainers, written critiques about what they need to do next.
Just thinking about that and visualising it and what they've got at their disposal, it's mind-blowing. I would never have imagined that they'd have this sort of thing even 5 years ago.
Well, imagine it this way. The cameras are on 24/7 in that building. Every single camera is connected to Triple H's office at Stanford. No matter where he is, he can tap in on his phone and watch what's happening at the Performance Centre at any time. He can drop an email to any star saying, you know, Sammy, I just saw the way you did that Blue Thunder Bomb. Save that till the end of the match and it'll be gold. Signed, Paul. Bang. Sends it through. Constant critique, constant positive reinforcement, constant inspiration. You're living, breathing, eating it. You know, the way they talk about the way that Vince lives his life, the way that Triple H and Stephanie live their lives. That's what this next generation is doing. They're living it all the time. They've got the John Cena experience from the very beginning, because you switch on your email and there's, saw that match you did last night playing around with Paige, looked really good, work on that armbar. That sort of thing. It's phenomenal.
There must be part of everybody that sort of must be not on edge, but I guess wary, because it's kind of like that. I don't know if you've seen Kevin Smith talking about Prince, you know, where he's like, every room is wired for sound. He's like, what, even the bathroom? He can record like Raspberry Beret on the shitter. You know what I mean? Like, it's that sort of thing where you just go like, wow, like you sort of be. But I guess like you said, like, you know, they like to have fun and flipping the bird, and it's not full on page. Like, people can have fun while they're at it.
One of the coolest things that they do apparently is that the talent will get together in front of the show ring. The middle ring in the ring room is the show ring. It's actually set up with cameras, with lights, and it's a miniature NXT. So you can actually practice your entire match from beginning to end. You can also get in front of that, switch the cameras on and do little improv routines, comedy routines. And they do that as a bit of a loosening up exercise. They have acting coaches come in and work with them on improv and stuff like that. There's a great video I've seen of Tenniel playing Paige and Paige playing Emma.
Yes.
It's hilarious. And they do that. They do all that sort of stuff. They just kick out the jams and have fun.
When you got to see a lot of that, I guess, people trying out different characters and people rehearsing, was there anything that stuck out where you thought like, okay, this person's doing this, why are they doing that on telly instead of this character? Or did you see something like someone did and go, somebody did something out of the blue, not even training, and you just thought, wow, that'd be really cool if they did that on TV. Was there any of that?
I saw a couple of things. There's one thing that I'm sworn to secrecy about that I'm not allowed to talk about yet. That when I can talk about, I'll be very, very happy I can finally talk about it. That's all right. There's another one. I saw Samurai de Sol before he became Kalisto working, and that was very cool. And then the other one was, the best part of the whole thing was Big Cass. Big Colin Cassidy. I love Big Cass. Before he really took off on NXT, there's a room, and you can read it in my article, there's a room called the Mirror Room. And it's where a talent performs to an iPad. They can record it, they can watch it back, play with their promos. Corey Graves was playing Michael Cole, interviewing Big Cass before his match at WrestleMania with John Cena for the championship. Corey was going out of his way to throw Cass questions in front of us that he wouldn't be able to answer properly. So it was testing. If you get hit with a bizarre question, how do you answer it? And the question was, you're going into your match with John Cena for WrestleMania for the belt, what type of pizza do you eat? Cass didn't even hesitate. Double pepperoni. You put sausage on it, I'm sending it back. You put basil on it, you send it back. You put extra pepperoni on it, I'm probably eating it. And it was the start of the whole realest guys in the room thing, the whole Enzo Amore thing that we saw to great effect on NXT this week, where they just took the place over with their energy. I watched Cass that moment and I went, you are going somewhere. You are going to be so damn huge. And he is going to be so damn huge, especially with Enzo. Watching that sort of thing, that sort of character come to life was just amazing. And then to see it turn up on TV a couple of weeks later was like, yes.
Yeah, from the first moment I saw Enzo and Cass, I just thought like the whole thing, like the New Yorker thing, you know, it's been so long since we've seen that in WWE, and then from the whole thing of, you know, Enzo being this tiny little guy who's got some muscles, the short man syndrome, you know, he's like, I'll take you on, you know, that sort of thing, the soft thing, and then Cass being this huge, like, tall guy, it's sort of like ebony and ivory, it's peas and carrots, but it goes together so well.
And it's the New Age Outlaws meets Shawn and Tripp's version of DX meets DDP in the Jersey Triad. You know, I mean, I see in Enzo a lot of DDP. You know, that sort of scrappy type, I'm never going to back down, common man type thing, especially when he came out this week. I mean, I swear it was like Paige saying that promo tonight, you know, bada bing, bada boom, realest guys in the room. It sounded like the Jersey Triad, sounded like Paige. And they're going to go huge, those guys. They're going to really go places.
I think Enzo's got a better chance. Well, Santino was, I guess, from day one, he was going to be a comedy character, but he's strictly that. When I look at Enzo, I think this guy can go in the ring, he could stay with the tough guys, yeah. But at the same time, it's like The Rock, where he's a tough son of a bitch, but he's the funniest guy on the roster at the same time. So it's like balancing the two is just quite amazing, you know.
The thing that got me with Enzo is you cut his legs out from under him, literally. You put him in a wheelchair for a month, and he's still as captivating to watch. And that reminded me of Austin. Austin had his neck broken for how long? And he was still on TV every week, and we were still loving it, watching it. Enzo was still one of the highlights of NXT. And he's in a damn wheelchair running over people's feet. And it was the greatest moment in the show. You know? And that's what they're bringing out of these guys down there. You know, they're just doing some amazing, amazing stuff. And they're teaching them everything too. Right next to the mirror room is the commentary room. And when we were there, Michael Cole was teaching Emma how to commentate a match, because everybody now needs to know how to commentate. The idea is you'll come out of the Performance Center knowing how to wrestle, how to backstage interview, how to commentate, how to do every job in the WWE machine, so that they can do an Alex Riley and say, you know what, you're not taking off as a wrestler. Bang, here you go, you're a commentator now. So you can do a Tensai. Thank you very much for your long years of service. Bang, let's make you one of the best color commentators we've ever made. And it's amazing. And Cole, for the record, is a cool dude. Michael Cole is awesome.
Yeah, I've heard that you get him alone, and you get him sort of out of the bubble, I guess, and he's actually like just a dude, really.
This was even in the bubble, you know. We're standing there with everybody else, and I just introduced myself and said, I thank you for giving journalists everywhere hope that there's a job after the mainstream media. He said, what's going on in journalism now? And I told him, he's like, geez, I'm glad I got out when I did. And he was cool, just so cool to talk to, and clearly loves the business and wants to segue out of it now. He wants to be backstage. He wants to be calling things down the headphones so that young kids can be calling Raw. He doesn't want to be on Raw anymore if he can help it. He wants somebody else to come take that spot so he can move to the next phase of his career.
Because it's funny because the impression that a lot of people get of Michael Cole is that he doesn't necessarily want to be in wrestling. That is something that he got thrown into back in the late 90s, and he found a gig and he's there. But obviously he's got a genuine passion for pro wrestling, for WWE.
Look, the people that are always at the Performance Center you've got William Regal, you've got Bill DeMott, and you've got Michael Cole. When they're not on the road, they are there. So Cole is working with these trainees all the time. He's teaching them how to commentate all the time. The man is as passionate and as dedicated as a Jim Ross as anybody else. He may not have the knowledge base of someone like a Jim Ross, but that doesn't make him any less in terms of his dedication to the business. He's not a fly-by-nighter. He's not a this'll do for a gig. He's all about making the next generation of this product.
That's really good. I just hope that, because I've heard like some of the announcers they've had in the last couple of months on NXT, and it's for me it's there's a bit of the storytelling there, which obviously you're going to have on their product. But there seems to be, how do I put it? I think there's not that real descriptive announcing at the moment in NXT. It's very much like, wow, that was but not necessarily engaging. That's why sometimes now when I watch NXT the last few weeks, as much as I'm a big fan of Renee Young, I think her backstage interviewing is really good. But the commentary, I've had the volume down for the last 2-3 weeks on it. So yeah, hopefully they're sort of, I guess they're just at that stage where they're coming along, So.
It's all a learning process, and that's what this is all about. And the great thing about NXT as a show is that everybody can learn, and you're seeing some of the best quality independent wrestling on TV under the WWE brand, so everything's going to be coming along together and merging into this whole, and when they're good enough, then we'll see them move up to the next stage.
And some of the other, I guess, memorable sort of moments of the trip over there. Just some of some of the things that, if people were to hear them about the Performance Center and NXT, they'd just be like, wow, like either I didn't expect that, or that sort of thing, like just things that really took you by surprise. I really did.
Well, we were all really upset because after we finished this massive tour, they said, oh, listen, Paul Levesque doesn't have time to give you 10 minutes each. So it's going to be one 10-minute press conference. I thought, God, I've flown 19 hours. I really want to talk to Triple H. So we did the 10-minute press conference, and then I asked him for a photograph. While we were waiting for the cameraman to get in position, I started asking him questions. And he said something that he liked. He said, oh, you better take that down. And I wheedled it into a 20-minute interview. So I got 20 minutes with Triple H, 10 minutes of which was on the record, 10 minutes of which was off the record, because we started talking about wrestling that we enjoyed when we were younger. Just as fans. And he said to me, look, will you go off the record so we can talk? I said, sure, put the notebook away. And I had a 10-minute conversation with Paul Levesque. Not the CEO or Chief Operating Officer, not Triple H the game, not the character, not the corporate man, but Paul Levesque, the wrestling fan. 10 minutes, and that was phenomenal. We had a great chat about absolutely everything under the sun, and it was just a really, really good insight into the man. And, you know, I've not always been the biggest fan of Triple H, the character, but I'm definitely a fan of Paul Levesque, the man, after that, because if he's the one that's going to be running the business in the future, we are in for a treat, and we are in very good hands because he knows what he's doing. And I think that truly, my belief is that the best moments on Raw right now and all the really good moments on NXT are all his brainchild. I think that we're seeing his influence seep through, and it's going to be a stronger product as a result. It's going to be a really good mix of some of the NWA style stuff we were talking about at the start of the interview and some of the entertainment stuff, because of course he grew up with the NWA stuff as well. So I think we're going to see that really holy merging of these things once and for all. And to me, the linking of the two belts in one is almost a physical representation of that. It's like that. It's a symbol of what they want the company to be from here on in. So that was, you know, very cool. Later on in the night, we ended up running into Billy Gunn backstage, which was cool, just saying hello to him. And then when it came time to, we left the Performance Center, we went to Full Sail and looked around. Then we went on to a live taping of NXT. And I got separated from the group and I got lost. And I'm lost backstage at Full Sail University trying to figure out where to go. One of the PR people came and found me, thank goodness, and we took the wrong turn and we're standing in Gorilla. And there's...
That's a pretty good detail.
That was a pretty good detail. So there's Michael Cole and JBL and Michael Hayes staring at us from behind a soundboard. And it was just that moment of deer in the headlights. It's like, oh, crap, we are in the wrong place.
You're shitting yourself, but for two different reasons, but at the same time. Like.
Exactly. Yeah, JBL didn't even look up. He was busy. Cole sort of looked at me and nodded, went back to what he was doing. And then Hayes turns around and looks at me and says, "Can I help you, son?" And with Freebird playing in my head, I'm thinking, "Yes, Mr. Hayes, which way to the stage, please?" So that was very cool. Just that was my only interaction with Michael Hayes, because he just pointed, and that was it. So that was my moment.
Was he wearing a bright white suit?
No, he was not wearing a bright white suit.
Okay, just checking. I didn't know if he dressed like that, you know, day to day. You know what I mean, or just for Hall of Fame ceremonies.
I reckon this was the Doc Hendricks suit from Austin 316. It was that kind of look. But the moments that took the cake for me during the NXT portion of the trip, because there was then a WWE portion, but the NXT portion of the trip, later that night, it's 5 minutes before showtime, the Full Sail crowd's outside waiting to come into the arena. I'm sitting up on the bleachers with all the other journalists, and Triple H is there on the side with all the NXT talent, talking to Joey Mercury and William Regal and a few others, and we're watching them plot out a confrontation between Adrian Neville and Bo Dallas. Next thing, Triple H says something to our minder. Our minder comes over with a big grin and says, "Come here." "What?" "Paul wants you all to come up on stage and feel what it's like to be a superstar for a minute." So we actually jumped the barricade, walked around the ring, up the ramp, and stood at the top of the ramp and looked down at the ring. And then everybody else sort of went, "Oh yeah," and filed off. And I said, "Could I just have an extra minute?" And they said, "Sure, take all the time you want." And I just stood there and soaked it in, and that's phenomenal. You know, from this little kid in Gawler watching it on Coliseum home video to standing at the top of the ramp looking at that official ring with the wrestlers all off to one side doing their thing, standing at the top thinking, if the lights and sound hit now, I could just run down that ring and do it. That was a moment that I'll never ever forget, and can be nothing more than grateful to all of WWE for giving me that experience. That was the absolute highlight of the trip for me.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Like, just you must have been tempted to sort of just grab a mic and go, "Hit my music."
I think I was more tempted to sort of grab the old shirt collar and do the Hogan rip or something like that. You know, I regressed all the way back.
Hand to the ear, like, hold on.
Yeah, but then I think I would have been crash tackled by security, and that kind of would have ruined the moment.
That would have put a dampener on things, yeah. So that's awesome. Were there any other people that you spoke to that you sort of like people or names that we might know that you sort of had to get their view on training or even the media? You know, I mean, that's one thing I guess we can talk about as well as wrestling and the media, especially in Australia. because we've seen like the article that you did was it was like, wow, great, a nice positive Australian article on wrestling. But then we've seen that a lot recently. The Feed on SBS2, they did a great story about 15-minute doco last week on PCW in Melbourne, and like just it was so good. Of all people, the Today Show did a great story on MCW, the ladies of MCW last year. It's been really cool to see that change in people's attitudes, where they, I guess NXT and the way Triple H is doing things, handling the media, is really helping, I think, because instead of people looking at wrestling now, and I think at least, and going, oh, it's that fake stuff, oh, it's all put on, oh, blah, blah. They're looking at it going, well, okay, like we said, it is like no other form of entertainment. It does encompass all these things. For most, not for everybody, but for most people, there is something for everyone. Like there's a form of wrestling for everyone as well. Do you think that like we're going to keep seeing more of this positivity in the media, and hopefully even then bring up the profile of Australian wrestling? Because like, as everyone knows, like the show here, like we're big supporters of that, being a part of it, and really want to see it get to a higher level.
We are going to see more positivity, and there's a couple of reasons for that. I mean, I did the article about RCW for the Fringe and things like that, and my editors were like, great, more wrestling, give it to us. You're going to see more positivity for a couple of reasons. One is the increased presence of women in the industry. The media loves stories about women, especially stories about women in unconventional roles. You give them a Tennille Dashwood and they're all over it. We want to report those stories. It's why, with that RCW article, we had a couple of the girls in masks as well for that photograph, because that's what people are interested in. You're going to see increased positivity because you've got a new generation of journalists coming through who grew up with wrestling and have a fondness for it. And so they want to report it the same way that I want to report it. It's going to come a time where I'm going to have some young whippersnapper at the paper fighting me for WWE free tickets, and I'm going to have to put him in a headlock or something. You're going to see more positivity because, whether you like it or not, the PG rating on WWE is working. Whether you like him or not, John Cena is working.
And you know what? Another thing on that, with like people wanting the Attitude Era back, we talked about this on the pod. People do look at it with rose-coloured glasses, and they don't realise that, a lot of those people did also grow up on the stuff in the early 90s, which was PG, Ultimate Warrior, all that stuff that people love, Randy Savage, the stuff that people love and remember. Yeah, that's it. That was quote unquote PG, and that's the audience that they were targeting. There's no difference.
And people like John are exactly what the industry needs to turn the corner away from the dark times of Benoit and things like that, because you've got somebody who's clean, sober when he performs. We all know John likes a drink. He's not as sober as Punk, but sober when he performs. Good looking, approved of by women, approved of by children. Things like the Be a Star campaign, all that stuff, all that positivity is going out there, and the media are responding in the right way. I say to people at work, they say to me, oh, why do you like wrestling? It's all fake. I say, well, how many people died in that action movie you watched last night? How many people did Optimus Prime really kill in the latest Transformers movie? Oh, none, it's special effects. What's the difference? This is exactly the same thing. It's a form of entertainment. It's special effects. It's telling a story in a sports-based environment. The really good comparison that works on people is, I say to people, did you like the film Any Given Sunday? Oh, yeah, I love that movie. Yeah, well, nobody actually scored any points in that film.
And nobody got shot on the football field.
Nobody got shot on the field. It was all choreographed. Do you like The Longest Yard? Yeah, well, prisoners don't really get to play football. That doesn't happen. Did you like Bodyline? Yeah, well, I can tell you for a fact that none of those actors actually hit Bradman's 6. That was all special effects. It's the same thing. So, yeah, you're going to see that, and WWE's responding to it really well. Their PR team is great. They're Australian people here at Communicado. Got to give a shout-out to Communicado in Melbourne and to Stephanie there. They do a phenomenal job as well, and the machine is working, and it's working for the betterment of the industry, for the betterment of the fans. There is the potential, sad as it is, for wrestling as an art form, as a global art form, to die out if it's not looked after properly. Whether you agree with the result of the Monday Night Wars or not, WWE hold the keys to the kingdom. They are aware of this, and they are doing everything in their power to make it survive. Vince doesn't go out and buy all the Von Erich footage because he wants to necessarily own the Von Erich footage. He buys it so that it doesn't end up degrading in a vault somewhere. The network is going to give us access to all that. I can't wait to show my wife this stuff. I can't wait to show my daughter this stuff. I sat my daughter down the other night and watched Eddie Guerrero matches. My daughter, who's 10, wasn't even born when Eddie passed away, is now, as far as she's concerned, Eddie is the greatest thing ever. And she's dying to make me watch the Eddie Guerrero, Shawn Michaels matches that we can find, things like that, you know? That's what it's all about, and it's about keeping that positivity going so the next generation has an industry to watch. And the local promotions are the biggest part of that, you know, being able to take your kids to something local and say, here's our product, here's our characters telling our stories. You know, I mean, TNA is getting it wrong because they're trying desperately to ape WWE. Local wrestling's getting it right because they're telling Australian stories with Australian talent in an Australian context, and that's what people want to see. Give us something different. Give us a local wrestling product that has the same level of intensity, the same level of skill, as close to the same level of production value as you can manage on your budget, but tell us our stories. That's what people want.
Yep, and that's one thing with characters locally as well. You've got your characters like your Johnny Barnes, your Cletus over in Victoria. Those kind of I'm not sure if somebody does a similar type of gimmick over in Perth as well. And there's a lot of those, you know, Ocker, sort of the bogan Aussie characters coming up. As far as I'm concerned, every Fed should have one because that is the kind of thing that your local fans want to see. You know, somebody coming out there in the AFL gear and going like, oh yeah, I just got let go by the Crow. And he come out as a heel, you know, just got let go by the Power. You know, everyone knows that, but he's going to go out there and think he's you know what, doesn't stink. Like, do things like this. Be different and be Aussie, because like at the end of the day, I mean, like, people like Emma and Buddy Murphy are getting picked up, and their accent's not hindering them. Right. You know what I mean? It's these days, I think, we're picking up heaps of listeners with our show in the States, and I think it's just because people like the different view of opinion, the fact that these people are on the other side of the world and they have the same passion. So I'll check this out.
For me, the best character in local wrestling right now is Brooksy. Yep. Everybody knows a Brooksy. Everybody wants to drive a 4-inch stake through a Brooksy's head. Everybody works with one, goes to school with one, has to catch a bus ride with one. There was one on my tram last night that I just wanted to say, oh, shut up. And my wife looks at me and says, he's bloody Brooksy. I said, yes, that's exactly right. You know, that character is the perfect quintessential Australian heel with that dash of flair in there. You hate him because he's right. When he says he's the best, he actually is. When he says he's going to beat you, he actually does. And so you want to see Grim kick his head off. You want to see Mimic turn face again, hint, hint, Mimic, and kill him. You want to see things like that. And that's why we love this industry. That's what we want.
Totally. And is there anything, cause I guess you've been coming to the RC Dub shows here in Adelaide and checking that out. As a wrestling fan, where do you see... we've talked a bit about it, you know, just now. But where do you see wrestling in Australia going? As far as, do you see, like we talked to Rove McManus about it a few months ago, and he really wants to see something like that happen. But it's getting the networks to put the money into it, or a production company to put the money into it. And it's all fine if Roving Enterprises want to do it, that's fine. But then it's making sure that, even though he's got a lot of pull, it's making sure that, okay, a 10 or a 9 is going to, or even a channel on Fox is actually going to pick it up, run it, support it, put 110% into it to get the maximum out of it. Like, do you think that we'll get to that stage where we'll have an Aussie wrestling product, or do you think that what talent are doing now by going to Japan, to Mexico, to NXT is really the way, like you said, honing his skills on the indies and then getting to the big league in America? Or will we see, do you think, an NXT regional, one in Australia, one in the UK, one in Africa? I'd love to see that.
That would be amazing, but I don't think that's going to happen. Part of what NXT wants to do is take a mixture of indie darlings and completely green people from other sporting venues.
Mojo,
and put them together. I mean, you know, Mojo's phenomenal. The man's stamina is ridiculous, and every week you see his moveset get that little bit better, that little bit better, that little bit better. It's getting there, and you can teach it. You know, you can take footballers and teach them. You can take rugby players and teach them wrestling.
Look at Goldberg. Like he's no Bret Hart in there, but Did he get over? Did everyone love Goldberg? Did everyone wear a Goldberg t-shirt back in the late 90s? Exactly right. They bloody well did.
That's right. I mean, and really, there's a proud tradition of that. Sting was a bodybuilder. He wasn't a wrestler. You know, he's one of the icons of the sport for damn good reason. You know, so I don't think you're going to see NXT set up in various locations as a result, as nice as that would be. With regard to your other question about media and media coverage in Australia, it's going to be hard because, I mean, I don't think it's any secret that the media dollar is not stretching very far right now for anybody. You know, Channel 10's problems right now are fairly public knowledge. They're financing issues, things like that. Channel 9 and Channel 7 are, as usual, engaged in a massive war for ratings, things like that.
Just quietly, if they put on some better content, they might get those ratings. But that's my take on that. Go on.
And I have no comment on that whatsoever. But I think that, if anything, the way I see Australian wrestling moving forward is twofold. The way that you have relationships between places like RCW and MCW, where you have rival federations that give you almost that WCW, NWO kind of feel. You know, every time Brooksy is announced as the Warzone champion, you think, oh, boo, hiss, rival promotion. You get that Crows, Melbourne, Port versus Fremantle, Collingwood kind of feel in there of, you know, this is my patch. The more that we can build that up and the more we get that local support for your federation and the hatred for the rival federation, the better, because then you can start having some interpromotional wars. What I'd love to see Australian wrestling do is follow the Ring of Honor method of the superstars of the indies. Like Ring of Honor was meant to be originally, you know, a place where all the great indie performers get together for one night and do a big super show and then put it on the internet, do an iPay-per-view, things like that. I think that's really the first step for Australian wrestling to take, because if you can make enough noise on the internet and enough buys on the internet, then the media companies are going to take notice, because we in the media are all looking at the internet. We're all looking at the platform, how we can exploit it, how we can use it. How do we use social media? How do we use Twitter? And if we see a wrestling group succeed in that platform, somebody's going to say, we need to put our dollars there. And to me, that's the next step, is digital, virtual, going online, saying, we will attract you to our product by showing you the best of what we've got. You know, you take the 10 best wrestlers from, you know, different federations around the country, put on a supercard in Melbourne, promote the hell out of that through every form of social media known to man, let me write about it for the News Limited papers, put it up on an iPay-per-view, and then do a report afterwards saying, we got 50,000 buys. You're going to suddenly have the execs in Melbourne and Sydney going, oh, hello, there's life in this, there's money in this. And that's what you need to do. You need to kick the door down yourselves before someone like a Rove can say, I told you, this is what you need to be looking at here, and that'll give you that crunch.
Because EPW are great in the media as far as getting the word out there, like whether it's through newspapers, radio, TV, over there in Perth, on the internet. They're doing a great job. And as far as, you know, getting the product on the internet, like a visual, you know, video, full shows, that sort of thing. MCW at the moment, they've got their Encore service. So you don't have to go to the shows and buy the DVDs. You don't have to pay for your postage. You don't have to put down $25 for a physical copy and then wait for it. You can go straight to MCW Encore online, watch full shows that have been cut together professionally. Like Mikey J does mind-blowing stuff as far as doing that. Their commentary as far as MCW shows, I think is, you know, I've been announcing at RCW for 5 years. I think their commentary on their DVD product's the best in Australia. Just brilliant. I mean, like, I think that they've really got it nailed at the moment. Like they're sort of doing things right, and even on Twitter and things like that. That's one little thing I have with RCW at the moment that we could be utilising. The Facebook's great, getting great views and all that sort of stuff, but I think Twitter could be better utilised, because I was one of those folks who, Twitter, gosh, geez, hashtag ats, I don't get it, I don't want to know about it. And then once started doing the podcast, I thought, well, how easy is it to just put a hashtag on the end and tag somebody, and then that person retweets it, or 50 people from Adelaide, because I've tagged Adelaide, they're going to see this interview with you, for instance, you know what I mean? Bang, there you go. Like, it's one of those things that I think could be better utilised, but yeah.
Let me give you a non-wrestling example. 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had the siege here in Adelaide, where Rodney Clavel took some women hostage in the middle of Adelaide, shut the city down for a day.
And just quietly, that was scary, because my wife, she works in town, and it was, you know, it's several blocks away, but as soon as I saw that, I was geez, I was freaking out. Like, is it anywhere near her? Like, I'm worried.
Well, I was up on the 9th floor of a parking garage, looking down on the whole siege, photographing it with my phone and live tweeting it. The number of views that I got for those tweets, the number of followers I picked up that day, the number of websites that just embedded my Twitter feed into their news copy instead of running actual reporting stuff and just ran my tweets as they went through, was beyond count. I've lost count of how many people. The medium has incredible power. And like you say, hashtag Adelaide, hashtag wrestling is enough to suddenly bring people in, suddenly drag them along. And that's exactly what, like you say, Australian wrestling needs to realise that there is a big grassroots fandom here that only gets WWE once every year, once every 2 years. And if you can make those people look and say, hey, I can go to local wrestling with my kids for $15, $20, $30 once a month, you're going to get them come through the door. That's why we did it. You know, you say I've been at RCW shows. I have. I've only started coming since RCW 100 because when I found out about it, I was there and I've not left yet. You know,
and also RCW 100 was one of those shows where, like, we all sort of, everyone involved in RCW, like, I mean, we always pump the shows on social media and that, but this was to the max. I mean, this was like, this is the biggest event that's all been building to this. Like, if you love wrestling, you're crazy if you're not there. And it was our biggest crowd yet. It was just pushed so hard. It was great.
But every event's got to be the biggest event ever. It goes back to what I was saying about NXT. They are all there wanting to be that next big star. It is all about the wrestling. So every night on NXT is the biggest night in NXT history. You see the way they promote it. You know, Rob Van Dam coming back for a match is a massive thing. Corey Graves coming back from injury is a massive thing. Everything is the biggest thing ever. Oh my God, why are you not watching it? You'll need to tear your eyes out if you miss it. That's what Australian wrestling needs to do. You can, if you like wrestling and you live in this country, you cannot afford to miss Grimm versus Brooks with Mimic and, you know, Scrap Iron. You cannot afford to miss that. You have to be there. You have to see this. And everything must have that level of urgency. That's how we in the media are getting the message out. You must be looking at adelaidenow.com.au right now, or you will miss the latest court case by Sean Fuster or the latest results from the Crows game or whatever. It's all about immediacy. It's all about being part of that social interaction.
And that's one thing where, like, when I do send out a tweet for anything, you know, RCW or podcast related in Adelaide, tag at Adelaide_tweet, bang, they retweet it and it goes out to 20-odd thousand people. You know, it's that easy with Twitter to get that reach that you can't get with Facebook, you know, because they want you to pay for your views and this and that and make that, and that's how they're making their dollars. That's how Facebook is multi-billion-dollar company now, I guess, you know what I mean? Like, Zuckerberg's raking it in, you know? So it's just something so simple like that can bring in, or at least get more eyeballs on what you've got to offer, you know?
And Twitter is also the best weapon kayfabe has ever had. You know, people like CM Punk are masters of using Twitter. AJ Lee, master of using Twitter.
Usually by not using it at all.
Exactly. When I came back from that night at NXT and then also my night backstage at WWE, which was the following night, I found that Emma had started following me on Twitter straight away, and Titus O'Neil, who I'd met backstage for 2 minutes, started following me on Twitter. Because that 2-minute conversation was enough for him to be interested and see what I wanted to do. You know, versus someone like Kane, who doesn't use his Twitter a lot, but went and bought my book after talking to me about it. You know, so they know what they're doing, and it is the greatest weapon for kayfabe ever. Roman Reigns is doing a really good job using it at the moment. There's a man that knows that he's the next big thing and is embracing it properly. John Cena's use of Twitter is phenomenal. I mean, God, you've got John Cena promoting Total Divas. How crazy is that? You know? So, yeah, that's what we need to be doing. We need to be getting out there as fans on my side, as professionals on your side, and just getting the word out that if you like wrestling and you live in this country, there is a show in your town somewhere. Get out there and see it, because I will put anything that I've seen in local Australian wrestling up against anything I've seen on the international indies and against most nights on Raw lately, and I will say it is as good, if not better, than some of it.
And it's just, yeah, I guess it's just a matter of making those people aware of it. You got those, like, thousands and thousands of people, at least in Australia, that are on Twitter, that are live tweeting during Raw, that are during pay-per-views, that, you know, as soon as the Shield broke up, like, Twitter just went bonkers.
I had to block you on Twitter on Raw days because it's like, shut up, Josh, I'm at work.
That's gonna happen. That's gonna if I'm there, if I'm available to actually sit down and watch Raw live, then yeah, I'll have a whinge or say what I like. That's gonna happen. But yeah.
One federation I've got to point people toward is ECCW in Canada, in Vancouver. We mentioned it earlier, Scotty Mack. The way that they use the internet is beyond brilliant, because I would only ever get to an ECCW show twice a year when my wife and I went back to see her family. I can follow everything they do on Facebook, on their website, and on YouTube. I've not missed a storyline in 4 years because they have kept me as informed as WWE.com does. They know what they're doing. And the thing is, Scotty has been in commercials in Vancouver. There's a documentary about ECCW that went to Cannes. There was a TV show called This Wrestling Life. Sorry, no, not This... This Wrestling Life. Yes, because, This Wrestling Life. All sorts of bits and pieces have happened. Vancouver and Canadian TV know who ECCW are because ECCW conquered the internet in Canada. So when the Canadian TV shows, TV news want to do a story about something, they contact Scotty. When there were tryouts in Seattle for WWE, Scotty and his crew went down for it. A Canadian news crew followed them, did a story on the 6 o'clock news about Canadians trying out for WWE, because they made themselves the indispensable news source for wrestling. And I mean, I know how that works as a journalist, because if something happens in wrestling that I want comment on locally, I come to you, I come to Brad, you know. Full disclosure of my allegiances there. I call you guys because you guys are the ones that are going to be able to give me the local perspective. And the more that, you know, people in Melbourne, Sydney, Perth can do that with their local newspaper, with the Herald Sun, with the Sunday Telegraph, with everything, they're going to find that then when you guys come to us and say, oh, hey, we've got this show we want to promote, that relationship has been created.
Yeah, and it's also the fact that, I guess, you know, somebody like, you know, in is the position that you're in as a journalist, have got to feel as chuffed as when someone approaches you and says, hey, I want you to do this story, as much as anybody in any other field is when a journalist comes up to them and says, hey, we want to do a story on you, you know, like that's, I'm sure it goes both ways, you know?
It does. We're people too. I mean, God, like I said, I got an email from WWE saying we want to fly you to Orlando because you wrote some nice stories about us. Okay.
You must have just sat there when you got that email. You must have just sat there before you replied and just went, hang on, like, I need to check my spam. Is this actually a legit address? Like, you must have sort of just thought, hang on, is that real?
Yeah, I did. And, you know, it was beyond surreal. It got to the point where I actually rang Communicato in Melbourne and said, no, seriously, what? And they said, no, that is the real email. I'm like, yeah, right. And they said, scroll down. And I scrolled down, and the original request was from Paul Levesque's office. You know, so I'd been asked for specifically because they wanted to invite a journalist from Australia. They were only going to invite one. They wanted to ask me because I'd done those previous stories. So yeah, as journalists, if you come to us with stuff, we are just as chuffed, especially if you can find the journalist in the newsroom, and there's one in every newsroom that is into wrestling. You know, we talk in Adelaide about Mark Aston loves wrestling, and he does. We know it, he does. So you use that connection. So
and there's so many people that are blown away, like that when they find out, oh really? And like, yeah, like you have no idea if you actually seen him in action, and then they see him managing, you're like, wow, I didn't realise that's a whole other.
We're everywhere, wrestling fans. We're all through the media. Bodie Nodge, who writes the basketball for the Adelaide Advertiser, massive wrestling fan.
Is that right?
He wanted to kill me when he found out I was taking this trip. You know, he was so angry with me. Val Migliacci, who writes The Soccer, is a massive Living Colour fan. My phone plays Cult of Personality when it rings. He said to me, are you a Living Colour fan or are you a wrestling fan? And he knew. He knew the CM Punk connection. It's there. It's just a matter of finding the person and tapping into it.
Just quietly, Buddy, I used to read his basketball because I was a massive basketball fan growing up, and always, like when I was a kid, even always read his articles. He was like my lifeline between, you know, like to the NBL stuff at least. Like, yeah.
Great man. Absolutely great man. Big shout out to Bodie there. BodieNodge.com.
There we go. And I guess we should get your plugs out of the way as well. If people want to follow you on Twitter, but if people want to sort of read more of your work, let the folks know where they can get a hold of you.
Sure, yeah. Well, I'm on Twitter at Sean Fewster, SeanFewster, Facebook.com/Sean Fewster. I'm writing every day on the world's greatest news website, AdelaideNow.com.au. Make sure you bookmark that one and spend a lot of time there, because you'll find unprecedented content about Adelaide. It surrounds all sorts of things from crime and courts down to crows and lifestyle, and just amazing stuff on AdelaideNow.com.au. My book is City of Evil, The Truth About Strange and Violent Crime in Adelaide. That's available at Dymocks here in the city and online at iTunes. I think I've run out of plugs now.
No worries. Well, look, Sean, I want to say a big thank you for sitting down and talking to us about this, like the incredible experience that you did have. And yeah, hopefully we can sit down in the future and maybe talk some more wrestling, or if you got a book to promote, even another book down the track.
We'll see.
We'd love to help you out with that, or anything that you need. Yeah, just big thanks.
No, thank you very much. Love to be involved any way I can. And if you're listening to this and you're not going out to see some wrestling this weekend, go buy a ticket and do it.
Do it now.